Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Big Idea Podcast. I'm Eric Bramlett, and I'm joined by Tim Sutherland and Belshazzar. If you don't know Belshazzar is universally accepted as our church's mascot.
And Eric, since we last did a podcast, has there not been a special occasion in Belshazzar's life?
Yes, we celebrated St. Belshazzar's Day.
Oh.
Yeah, the 29th of February. Every 4 years, we celebrate St. Belshazzar's Day.
So how old is Belshazzar?
Belshazzar is
Total of?
4.
He's 4.
Well, he might even only be 3.
I mean, talk about prematurely gray.
Yeah, that's not good.
And,
but anyway,
although
he's
prematurely
with us.
gray is really good.
Yeah, prematurely.
It's really...
What?
That wasn't nice. This is a Christian podcast.
You're right. I blame myself. I apologize.
He might not know Jesus.
We are discussing a brand new series that we are excited about that's hitting the summer a few weeks in June, and it is called Get Out and Stay Out. And
No, it's not about marital problems.
No, it's not. It's not even about marital solutions.
That's true.
It's
not about marital.
It's not about anything marital. Although I will say that if you can get this right,
yeah,
it's going to help your marriage.
That's true.
You know, I would say that.
Well put.
See?
Incisive.
So Getting Out and Staying Out is a financial stewardship and generosity series.
Yes, it is.
And so we're excited about it. We think it's going to be great. There's some great takeaways, great new opportunities at Community Christian to express what that is all about and take advantage of some resources that we have. So I think it's going to be fantastic and just a great reminder coming out of the Ladder series from this past year. So it's good stuff. So why don't you kick us off, Tim? Talk to us a little bit about the series and even getting into week 1, Getting Out.
Yeah, you hear getting out and you think finances and you think, oh, well, this is going to be about getting out of
debt.
Right. And it is sort of about that, but that's only one side. What we're going to do, we have a general rule, is if you say what you think people think you're going to say, why say it? Because, they saw that coming. So we are going to talk a bit about getting out of debt, but really what we're talking about is a opportunity and a challenge and a call for people to get out of their current dysfunctional relationship with money. Because as we talked about in the Ladder series, we talked about the 3 ways that money kind of owns us, that money can own you if you count on it for security, and money can own you if you count on it for, like satisfaction, fun. I can't have fun. I can't enjoy life if I don't have money to spend. And money can own you if you count on money as a way to keep score of your significance. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of blend the significance and satisfaction one. And we're going to talk about how everybody has a tendency towards being owned by money, in that for the security people, oh no, if I don't have enough, my life is going to fall apart and the world is going to end and I'll be penniless and homeless and no one will love me. And for other people, they are owned by money because, oh no, if I don't have money, I'll never be able to enjoy myself. I'll not be able to go to the places I want to go and drive what I want to drive and have the fun that I want to have. And even though they seem so different, they have one thing in common, and that is they have a relationship with money that they need to get out of. And we really liked, in teaching team, we really liked one of the things Stuco had done. Shout out to Stuco. They had done a thing about breaking up with money.
Right.
And we had actually talked a little bit about it in service. And so this is sort of like breaking up with money, because I'd put it out there. I really believe everybody watching this podcast and everybody who's going to be in our service has a fundamental orientation, if you will, toward money dominating their life in ways that they might already know is not good, or like going, oh yeah, money kind of does run the show. So we're going to talk about getting out of that. That's why we like this verse from Matthew so much, this famous one about nobody can serve 2 masters. So definitive, so in your face. Jesus says either you'll hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. And it's like going, wow, money is trying to get you to love it.
Right.
and hate God.
Right.
Money's trying to get you to be both devoted to it. So it's like this idea, it talks in the Old Testament about God being jealous and possessive of us in a positive way. Well, money is devoted and is jealous and possessive of us in a
negative way.
Yeah, not positive way.
Not good. Now, obviously, he's using the metaphor there of slavery and being a slave.
Mm-hmm.
And in a time period in which that was the order of the day, that there were slaves, that
Yes.
ownership was possible.
Yes.
In our environment, that's not the case.
Yeah.
How does that metaphor work for us differently?
It's really interesting. Slavery in the first century, both in Greek culture, Greco-Roman culture, and Hebrew culture, was not always what they call chattel slavery. We think of, the American South, sadly enough, especially for those of us who are from there, to our shame, that you own this person and you can beat them and they're chained up and they're yours for life, and if they have kids, the kids are yours. That's not the way that slavery was primarily, especially in Hebrew culture, especially in Jesus' culture. Mm-hmm. Slavery was something for many people they did for two reasons. Either because they got in debt and couldn't get out.
Okay.
So they had to work their way out. So they'd sign away and say, I'm your indentured servant, I'm your slave for 7 years to pay off my debt.
Mm-hmm.
Or they would come from some really bad situation where, like they became destitute financially and had to attach themselves to somebody with money by becoming their indentured servant. So they couldn't just get a job. You would do this thing to where you would become the actual word in the Greek for slave is better translated bond servant or bond slave. It's somebody who basically has become bound to someone, but there's ways they can get free.
Gotcha.
Whereas with chattel slavery, not to be confused with cattle slavery,
Totally
which
different.
I know, Bill, cattle slavery especially bothers you.
Yeah, well, he doesn't like to talk about it, actually.
Oh, okay.
If you don't
And so that and there was some chattel slavery in Greco-Roman society, but especially in biblical culture, the Hebrew coming out of it, Jesus's culture, chattel slavery wasn't the deal. It was indentured servitude.
So when he talks about freedom and he talks about slavery and the masters, really, there is a potential future of freedom.
Yeah, you could
out
get
there.
you could get free.
Okay.
You could get free if you. And it was interesting because that was often attached. Slavery was primarily a financial issue. Well, it was in the American South too, but the whole idea of owning a person was not primarily financial.
Right.
Owning a person was a very, very evil thing, and so slavery is a little different. Which, in case anybody asks you, how could the Bible not say free all slaves? Well, they weren't slaves
in that way.
It's a common question and a common objection to Christianity, even though this is not an apologetics
Right.
series. But little extra, you get that for no extra charge on this podcast. You won't be getting a bill from anybody.
Secondary big idea. Big
Or a
idea.
bill.
So what do you think is the one thing we want people to walk out of getting out doing? What's the takeaway, if you will, for this week?
Well, it may not be a doing thing as much. I mean, obviously, if I'm a spender, if I use money, if I'm a slave to money because I spend, then I may go, oh, you know what? I'm not going to spend so much, and I'm going to start getting out of debt. However, you can get all the way out of debt and still be a slave to money because you sit around wishing all the time you had it.
If it controls your thoughts, yeah.
Yeah, and similarly, people who tend to look to money for security, obviously, are always trying to put more into their 401k or their IRA or whatever, and so somebody could give away all their retirement and still be a slave to money because they're freaked out because now I'm so vulnerable. So we're talking about this thing that is so global and affects every area of our life. We're talking about this whole thing of drawing closer to God, having a fuller relationship with God, to where I'm saying to God, I don't want to serve. I don't want to be a slave to anybody. It's interesting. Scripture uses the idea. The Apostle Paul says we're no longer slaves to sin, but we're slaves to Christ. but then it says that when you're a slave to Christ, you're actually free,
Right.
which is really interesting. And so this is like being freed from, in order to be bound to. But that's a willing thing, because again, remember, Hebrew culture, slavery was often a willing, volitional thing.
Right.
So we're talking about that, and we're just basically going to try to help people get that. We're trying to get to a place that they can, in some real way, have a moment of kind of like, oh, kind of aha, eureka kind of thing, where they're going, yeah, I'm not rich, but I kind of am a slave, or I haven't got $1 gazillion in debt, but man, I just, I'm like that. I don't carry any debt, but I still think I cannot have fun in this life if I don't have the money to go on vacations, if I don't have the money to buy nice Christmas presents, if I don't have the money to live in a decent house. I really think at a deep kind of emotional, personal, spiritual level, there's like this fear, I can't have fun, or life will be something that's like going, wow, I really need to confront that. So this series is to try to confront that indentured servitude that I really believe that at some level, everybody except Kirsten Strand has.
So
I'm
that's
serious.
Good. I mean,
I'm totally
that's
serious.
like 5,999 of us need this talk. Yeah.
5,999%. And I mean that with tremendous respect for Kirsten. How does she do it?
Oh, it's amazing. All right, so that's week 1. That's getting out.
Yep.
So as we move on to week 2, then we're going to stay out.
We are.
Once we get out, we want to stay out. So we reorient our thinking, and we transform our global position on money, and then it's going to try to draw us back in, but we don't want that to happen.
Yeah, I love kind of the big verse for the day is this Hebrews 13:5. Everybody has heard that piece where God says, "I will never leave you, I'll never forsake you."
Yeah.
And it's always said to comfort
So
people.
pretty.
It's so pretty. Most people don't know that it's specifically about money.
I did not know that.
It's not true about other things, but God said it specifically. He only said it in the New Testament ways. He only said it one place, and it is in the context. I'll just read it to you. Keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have, because God has said, "Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you." So I love it that this, ultimate refrigerator magnet verse is going, oh, look, where do I need to know more than anywhere else maybe in my whole life that I can count on God? It's with this. It's with the money. And so we're talking about that elusive, difficult thing that people who aren't there usually aren't real juiced about talking about it, which is contentment. We all want to talk about contentment when it comes to life in general, but with money we associate contentment with deprivation. But in Scripture, obviously, the association with contentment is freedom and peace and joy. And so I love this. If you look at the verb tense, when it says keep your lives free from the love of money, the verb tense there is ongoing. It's like keep on keeping your life free from love of money. Keep on keeping on.
Right.
And there's this sense, because money ain't going to give up. If you break free today, money's going to be there tomorrow. Money's not worried. Money is sure it's going to get you, because it's going to never, ever. Money is relentless. The only person who is more relentless, the only force that is more relentless in all the universe than money is Jesus himself. And so we're going to talk about this whole idea of contentment, both for those of us like me who think of money as a matter of, oh, that's what I have to be satisfied and have fun and enjoy my life, or people who are going like, oh, I got to have more in the bank, or I'm going to end up living in a gutter. Right. We're going to talk about the Hebrews verse that talks about the kind of this gravitational pull. We were talking about this in teaching team. Sean Williams actually made a Star Trek reference.
Wow, that's impressive.
And incongruous.
I almost don't know what to say about that.
Yeah. So Sean Williams goes, yeah, money's like a tractor beam that's always trying to pull you back in. And of course,
Okay.
I had to stop the meeting.
Now, isn't that a Star Wars reference?
Well, originally, since...
Was there a tractor beam? Was there a tractor beam in Star Trek?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Okay.
yes. In fact,
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because they would get sucked in.
the Enterprise actually had a tractor beam to pull in the space shuttle that was named...
Oh, USS Lincoln? I don't know.
I thought you were going to say, oh, I couldn't care less. There was Galileo was
Okay,
one of them.
sure.
And I believe Columbus or Columbia was one of the other ones.
Sure.
Anyways, and they would use the tractor beam to suck back in the little shuttle from the Enterprise
Very good.
when it was adrift in space, and William Shatner was saying, "Oh no, we must save
These are
ourselves."
very, these chairs are very Star Trek.
They are, especially if they could.
It's like, engage.
Yes,
Yeah.
you have the con, So, so we're going to talk about this, and again, we're not trying to demonize people when it comes to money. We're trying to do what Jesus did: demonize the love of money.
Mm-hmm.
It's really clear. When he chose to pick the number one thing that's going to compete for your allegiance with God.
I think it's very difficult for us to hear the word contentment.
Yes.
And be okay with it.
Yes.
I think there's a feeling of that if contentment implies a staticness or a stopping.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to money, on either side of those things, either the pursuit of something greater or the protection of what you have.
Ooh, pursuit, protection, that's good.
Yeah, every now and then.
Yeah.
But when you're in the throes of that, and you think about being content, it feels very passive. What would you say in terms of people dealing with sort of this word contentment in this talk?
Yeah. That's not in the notes, but that's like spot on. Really good stuff. Contentment is like money, the love of money, in that contentment is a dynamic, ongoing thing where I pursue contentment, and contentment is something that you don't just establish and then once you have it, like a dollar bill in your pocket, as long as it stays in there, you've got it. Is that there's going to be this it's like this ongoing tug of war between the love of money and contentment, and so staying out is this thing of this ongoing, and it's going, it's really a view of life that goes, wow, contentment is not some sort of stasis that you achieve. Contentment is a journey. Contentment is a battle. Contentment is a process, and I don't know.
And it's almost an expression of the relationship.
It is, and it's a quality of relationship. And again, we're enlarging this concept of what does it mean for me to trust God financially? I mean, does that mean I'll never miss a car payment? Does that mean I'll always have a house? Well, it clearly doesn't mean that, because there's Christians all over the world who are pretty destitute. And yet, cliche as it might sound, I've met many of them in Haiti and Rwanda and the Philippines, and I've met those who have nothing and are content. But I don't think it's just because they're hopeless and they can't get anything. It's like, especially like in the Philippines, it's really not a third world country in the sense of there's internet around, and there's little motorcycles, and there's heck, probably half the designer clothes we're wearing were made within 100 miles.
Right.
And so there's all of this sort of black market, Gucci and Dolce and Gabbana and all that stuff. And yet there are plenty of Christ followers in the Philippines that it's something that they keep themselves out of, but not because they're just peaceful and placid, but because they become part of a community where the values have shifted and the values have changed, and they're becoming new people. And I think this is one of those things that's hard for us. We tend to think, okay, you're saved, and then you're saved, and you're just there. And we try to help people see this ongoing process of becoming a newer and newer and newer person. And that's this whole thing of going, what in the world does it mean to trust God like for me, what does it mean to trust God that life is going to be satisfying in some respect of that word, even if I have no money?
Right.
What does it mean to trust God even if I get to 65 and if you're a security person and I can't retire and I have to be a greeter at Walmart?
Right.
Wearing the blue vest until I go into the state-run old folks home. Mm-hmm. Could life possibly be satisfying? And I know, we goof around a lot, but this is, I believe this to be true. A lot of people, myself included, don't think it's possible. If I'm working at Walmart as a greeter when I'm 74, making minimum wage, there's no way life would have any meaning because I don't have money. I don't have money to have fun and travel like you're supposed to do when you're 74.
Right.
I don't have money so that I can have a huge nest egg so big, that a condor could sit on it. Because, of course, condor is the largest living bird.
Yes. And Condor Man was a really bad movie with, I think it was no, it wasn't John Ritter. But it was a really bad movie in the 70s. William Catt, actually.
Okay, 6
Disney
degrees to Kevin Bacon for William Catt. Go.
Oh, gosh. Let's see. William Catt was in The Greatest American Hero with what is his name? Robert Culp?
You could say any ambiguous name right now, and I'd probably go,
I know.
It's a hard one, though, isn't it?
It is really hard, but I'll get it. I won't get it right in this second.
And you knew
but
by
I'll
his
get it.
initial responses, he will get it.
I'll get it.
I tell you what, why don't we make it a contest? 6 degrees.
6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon from William Catt. No Googling.
No Googling.
No Googling.
And you have to sign it, and as you're signing it, put your hand on a Bible, and if you're lying, your hand will burst into flames.
Right, exactly. All right.
Well, which hand?
The other one.
Okay.
Let's go.
But we do mean that there will be a prize for anybody who can
there
get
will
6
be-
degrees to Kevin Bacon from William Catt without Googling.
We'll do another Starbucks gift card. The Starbucks gift card, by the way, for the last podcast's contest,
Yes.
went to my brother Alec, who was the only one who knew that a flipper was fake teeth for little kids, for toddlers and tiaras. So that's what a flipper was. So Starbucks gift card if you can get us to Kevin Bacon in 6 moves or less.
And your name is not Alec,
And you're
because you can't win.
no Googling.
And no
William
Googling,
Catt.
no Googling, and no asking Alec.
William Catt. No asking Alec.
Right.
All right, let's move on to week 3 then. So we've gotten out, we've stayed out,
Yep.
we have an understanding of contentment. It's what we want. So now what?
Getting ahead. You hear getting ahead. It's a financial series, and what do you think?
It's about money and me holding on to as much money as I can
Yeah.
so that I can get ahead of the curve because I'm going to end up spending it all. So it's like I got to have enough for retirement. I got to have enough for all these things that I'm supposed to have.
Yeah. And yet you know that we're not going to tell you to do that.
Probably not.
So we're going to redefine what getting ahead is. And this one, for those of you who are in our culture, you know this. So I guess if you're watching this, you're in our culture or know how to hack the private YouTube.
Right.
The getting ahead here is going, well, what does it mean to grow in generosity? And how does that possibly mean I'm getting ahead? So we're going to be talking about generosity, which is one of our favorite things to be talking about. It was interesting to tell you a story. A guy confronted me after the ladder series and said, I'm tired of this church talking about generosity when it really means giving more money. And this is a really committed guy,
Right.
who is unbelievably active. When I come to the yellow box on a particular night of the week when we have a particular ministry, and he's always there serving. And he's going, we should talk about generosity in service or generosity in time. And so I looked. I couldn't find anywhere in the entire Bible where generosity was ever used as a word for anything except
Money.
yeah.
That's
Now,
interesting.
I didn't go back to the dude and confront him. I just said, well, I can understand what you mean. I think you're right. But I basically said, it's Eric's fault.
Blame me.
That's right. He's my boss. So I just blame the boss now. No, actually I didn't. I just said, nah, that's part of our culture. That's China culture. It's a language thing. But actually, it's not just a language thing unless you think the Bible is just a language thing. Because I looked and I could not find any example of the word generosity, Old Testament or New Testament, that wasn't talking about using finances or financial resources to take care of someone else or to give to God, which was really cool.
That's a nice little find.
Yeah, it was a nice little find, and it wouldn't have happened unless this guy was mad, which is kind of cool.
So if I'm patterning my life to express myself through generosity, then that creates a different sort of legacy.
Yeah. And see, this is where it's not about, just give more. Because we're using the wonderful story from 1 Chronicles 29, one of my favorites in the entire Bible, where King David's been told he wants to build a temple for the Lord because it's just a tabernacle, and he thinks the Lord shouldn't have to live in a tent. You know, it's kind of like, what's our God? Our God just lives in a tent. Everybody else's God, from the pagans, have a big old temple. It was kind of like that, but he really did want to build a permanent dwelling place for the Lord. And the Lord said, no, you're not going to be the one to build it. Your son is, which would be nice for some people, but that was probably a pretty bitter pill for King David to swallow. It's the one thing he did not do as king, both on the positive side and the negative side.
Right.
And yet it's an amazing story. Please look at it. I saw something the last time I preached on this text, which was for another church in another state, another thing for one of their capital funds, generosity things. And what I noticed is they were taking up a collection to get the stuff to build the temple. And it wasn't just a building for religious services. It was the sacred place to house and cherish the concentrated presence of God on earth. That's a big thing.
Right.
That's a huge thing. And so, but it's interesting. You read the text in 1 Chronicles 29, and you'll see that they already had enough money because the government had done kind of like a tax thing. People were glad to pay it, and they already had enough money in hand. Mm-hmm. So they already have enough money to build this sacred building. Then King David steps forward and says, from my own reserves, I'm going to give this tons of gold and tons of silver. And really what he does is he essentially empties out his IRA and 401k to build a building that he's never going to see.
Yeah, he knows he's never going to see it.
Yeah, he's going to die before the temple is ever built. He's not going to even get to ever sing one song in it or ever get blown away by the presence of God in it, ever. And yet he wants it so bad. And there's this old quote that I found from some proverbial source that says that, it's the exact wording is here in the Big Idea Grass, but essentially says that one of the meanings of life is when you plant shade trees under which you yourself will never sit. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to talk about generosity specifically. We've got this organization who's come to the church who works and specializes in wills and trusts.
Yes.
Right, Eric?
That's right.
Would you like to say something about this organization?
Well, I mean, I would like to say something about that organization. I don't remember the name of that organization.
Right. But the general concept.
The general concept. We are partnering with a team of kind of financial advisors. Mm-hmm. And the way that it works, my parents have a will. Mm-hmm. Your parents have a will.
I have a will.
You have a will.
Do you have a will?
I don't have a will.
You need to have a will.
I need to have a will. And what this organization will do is
Wait, do you have any money?
No. So it doesn't matter.
It doesn't need a will.
But no, I do need a will.
No,
yeah. And what this organization will do is they'll come alongside of us as a church and meet with our attenders, myself, and this is going to happen with our staff first. We're going to go first with that. And really just an opportunity for us to get to know them as an organization. They provide great counseling and care and instruction for people to sort of get that house in order.
Yeah, the will and trust thing.
Mm-hmm. But they do so from a generosity and from a legacy mindset.
Yeah.
And so as it relates to, what happens down the road, and like you talked about the shade that you're not going to sit in, this organization is going to come alongside Community Christian and be a resource for us and for our attenders to be able to help make it clear and make it something that you can actually tangibly place. The idea that, when I die, there's going to be a certain amount that's going to go here. There's going to be a certain amount that's going to go in this place. There's going to be this. There's going to be that.
Because the American way is when I die, it's all going to one place.
Right. All to my kids.
Or my cat.
Or
if I don't have kids.
Right. Exactly.
Which is...
Yeah. And so the opportunity to be able to guide our attenders in creating a legacy that says, what would it look like for Community Christian Church to be one of the places where your legacy is experienced.
Yeah.
And so obviously from a long-range goal or a long-range, experience, that's something that's helpful to keep the mission of the church going. But I would say in the short term when we're talking about changing your frame of mind and changing how you think about money, that kind of counseling and that kind of helpfulness in terms of those experts working alongside us are really going to, I think, in a very positive way, help our attenders reframe their mind in terms of what it actually means to live, to leave a legacy. And so, and we've had some experiences with that in the past with our church, with attenders. There was a attender from Carolina who passed and who left an amazing gift to the church, really just kind of their own volition. And I think that, we've seen the benefit of that. And
our campuses in the city.
Yeah.
There was a person that passed away in downstate Illinois, a friend of the church who happened to be kind of like trustee of the estate. Did it make all three campuses that are starting in the city possible, or just a couple of them?
I think the gift translated to be able to be used for all three, but I'm not entirely
and so there's campuses starting in the city of Chicago because a person who's passed away who never heard of Community Christian Church entrusted their legacy financially to a Christ follower to say, distribute this for me as you see fit to basically extend the reach of the gospel.
Yeah, and I think for me, the key on that is not to assemble a bunch of people to steer them towards giving to us.
Nope.
The key is that what we're talking about, like we said, is a complete global shift, a change of how you react to money and how you think about money and where you find your contentment.
Right.
And that generosity that is expressed through keeping the mission going is something that isn't just about what happens during the time that we're on the earth.
Yeah.
That there is a legacy element there. And this series from a public standpoint is going to kind of kick off this relationship with this group and the way in which we can work with them in the future, and at your campuses that there's going to be classes available and all that kind of stuff to be able to create opportunities for our attenders to see it, to see what it looks like to leave a generous legacy.
Yeah, and we're not going after the older people in congregation who got a really tough diagnosis recently.
Right.
We're going to be talking to our kids about this.
Yeah.
And because I haven't checked out this stat yet, so bear with me if this isn't exactly accurate. But my understanding is that the average American passes away with about $75,000 once all the fees and stuff are paid to distribute. And so this isn't for the rich person who goes, they've got millions, so they need an estate planner.
Right.
No, the odds are that the average person who goes through our church is going to have about $75,000 or more that they can leave. And so what does it mean? Even just the whole idea that if I have 3 kids and $75,000, that I would leave a fourth to, say, the Haiti team or the reproducing church team, or just the idea that a fourth would go so that it sort of becomes like my child. Because we think of our children, obviously, as our primary legacy, and it's like, but what about your generosity? And so even if somebody goes, if I have $10,000 to my name, I want $2,500 of it to go to the team that's working in East Aurora. Think about that. It's not just a nice thing. That is a truly kind of seismic tectonic shift in how we think about stuff, because the only thing you do is you leave it to your kids, because you want your kids to have the same slavery to money that you had, because your kids can't be safe, or your kids can't have fun if they don't have a lot of money. So let's just contribute to our kids' addiction, to the same addiction that we never broke. Let's make our kids be slaves. And see, that's where kids get born into slavery.
Sure.
Because we, it's not that we have to be like our parents, but we tend to pick up. I've got one parent who thinks about money as a matter of enjoying life, and I got one parent who thinks about money as being safe. So,
So you're conflicted at every moment.
And then guess what I've got? I got 2 kids. One of them thinks about, where's this going? It's funny how that happens.
Right. Well, and I think, on wrapping up this series too, I just love that we're ending with David's words, where he says, you should be able to give as generously as this. Everything comes from you, and we have given you only what comes from your hand. Another reminder that at the end of the day, all of it is God's. And he's given us an opportunity to administer, this gift. And so, I think in terms of getting ahead, it is an expression of what it's like to truly understand that this is not my stuff.
And we're going to try and tease apart the difference between what I would call secular philanthropy, the millions and billions that the Gates and the Buffetts and the Zuckerbergs give. I think it's great they're giving, but I don't think they look at what they're giving as belonging to God. I think they're looking at what they're giving, especially, you just read their words. They look at it as their hard-earned money, and it's through their largesse that they give it, and so it's a self-aggrandizing thing. And I don't mean, I got nothing against it. I'm glad Zuckerberg gave $95 or $100 million to New York City schools. I'm very glad of it. But he still gave it the week before the movie came out that he didn't look so great in. And I'm just saying, in the rhetoric that goes with secular philanthropy, you don't hear anything of stewardship of life from a spiritual theological perspective, even in the most nebulous sense of spirituality. You don't hear Bill and Melinda Gates going, we have been blessed, or we have been, just kind of fortunate to be gabillionaires.
Right.
They're humble people in their giving. I like that. But there isn't that sense in any of the language that would suggest any sort of stewardship of resources. It's just about, I want to help people, which is good. But we're going to go, okay, this is not just about joining the hipster gabillionaires who are giving away a gabillion.
Joining the help you out with my stuff fund.
Which is good. We're not going to knock that. We will never knock that. We're just saying this is not what God's calling you to. He's not just calling you to help some people with your money. He's calling you to a different relationship with money. He's calling you with a completely different understanding of life. Something tells me the Gates didn't change their lifestyle to give away $1 billion. Something tells me Zuckerberg, since Facebook was just valued at a little over $6 billion or something prior to this IPO that's coming up, something tells me that he's not waking up in the morning going, oh man, if I only had that $100 million back. It's just a hunch. So forgive me for some of my cynicism, but we're going to talk about generosity that is at times sacrificial, but ultimately has a trajectory towards reaching the 67 and the 20 because it matters to God and because people are made in the image of God and not just because we want to be nice.
Right. No, that's good. So I think it's going to be a powerful series and a great kind of baton pass from the ladder. Now, for those of us who've been doing this for a while, you get into a little bit of a routine with a financial series. You sort of can get used to it, I guess. And as you're experiencing this podcast and as you're thinking about what's happening next and the kinds of things that you're planning, be it large group content, creative content, small group content, I would just encourage you, from Tim and myself, that really do whatever you can to think about this anew. Think about it for the very first time, because when it comes to the barriers that are out there, from for a closer, more content-like relationship with Jesus, this one's up there. It's one of the biggest.
It is.
And you have so many new attenders that have never experienced this kind of communication in their church experience.
Yeah.
And
I want to encourage you, don't back into this. It's so easy to go, people are uncomfortable with money, so we want to kind of, demur and like, no. You're going to bless people. You're going to, through you, God's going to change people's lives for the better. You've got something in the gospel. You've got something in the teaching of Scripture that people need very, very badly. And God's entrusted it to you in your role. And so that's good stuff, Eric, because don't back into this. Okay, got to do a financial series. I struggle with that as a teaching pastor, but I got to keep telling myself, no. For some people, no one ever talks. People can complain. There's a stereotype that churches are always hammering people about money. A lot of people who go to our church don't go to church. So how could they have ever been hammered by a church? They may have the stereotype, but no. We are out. We are out as a staff and as a Christ-centered corporate culture to bless people. And that's what this series is going to do. It's going to bless people now. It's going to bless people. It's going to bless people around the world, globally, locally, after all of this is gone. After Eric's gone, after I'm gone, Belshazzar will always be here, not because he has any special qualities other than he's not biodegradable.
Right, yeah, literally he can't go anywhere.
Not biodegradable.
No, you're
so
right.
He's going to be around. But,
All right, well, at this point in the podcast, the tape or the memory card that we were using filled up. It just got full. It was on a different setting, so it was capturing at a higher rate, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, we were basically done. I mean, we were talking about Belshazzar, so you knew we had to be close to being done. So we wrapped up, we said goodbye, and we said we'll see you next time. So that's what I'm doing right now. For Tim Sutherland, I'm Eric Bramlett, saying goodbye, and we'll see you next time.